You Booked It, episode 146. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. And if you want even more, head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the email community where we dig deep into what you can be doing right now to help book that next gig. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Emily Martinez. Are you ready for this, Emily?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Emily is a musical theater performer and content creator hailing from Weehawken, New Jersey. Before she, her husband Gabe, and their annoyingly adorable pit bull Daisy settled near the Big Apple, Emily was leading production shows with Carnival Cruise Lines for 4 years, sailing around the world. Pre-COVID, Emily was seen as Jo in the workshop at 54 Below concert of Starry, a new musical, and as Fraulein Kost in Columbia University's production of Cabaret. For 6 years, Emily has been curating content on her performance lifestyle channel, the home of the Forever Theater Kid, where she brings her personal expertise of the musical theater and cruise ship worlds balanced with her hot messness of human life to her growing community. Her videos range from stage makeup tutorials to travel vlogs to backstage tours to drunken breakdowns of your favorite Broadway shows. Emily's mission is to help humans with a passion for the arts to navigate the ups and downs of the musical theater world while still celebrating their enoughness every step of the way. The falls are just as special and important as the climbs, and Emily wants her audience to know that there are many paths to the top of the mountain and that her channel is a safe place for them to celebrate the beautiful weirdness that is the world of musical theater. Emily, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
We're all just a little bit of everything, right, these days? So yeah, I'm right across the river from Midtown Manhattan in Weehawken, New Jersey, very close to the battlegrounds of Hamilton and Burr. I like to use that for my little musical theater kicks. I'm a fur mama and wife. I am a non-ec actor right now and gig life performer whenever a gig comes along. I do a lot of freelance work, especially with video editing and video creation. And I'm really trying to work on creating a safe space to be authentically myself, encourage others to do the same with my channel in the theater space, and trying to find my own path through my YouTube channel to hopefully one day achieve some dreams of being on Broadway and beyond.
Brilliant. And I love your YouTube channel, by the way.
Thank
I was
you.
watching the drunken review or synopsis of Hamilton.
Yes.
Very funny.
Thank you.
Very funny.
Tipsy Tales. She's grown, and over the years, she first started with, I say she as a channel, not speaking in third person. Oh gosh, that would have been awful. Tipsy Tales started as drunkenly reading children's books. And then I thought, that's probably a lot of copyright mess if I do that. So I stopped for a couple years, and then I started doing it again during quarantine and going, I should just do it with musical theater. And I've grown a passion for it again, which, I mean, having one too many drinks after you're 30 is... the next day is a little rough, but it always comes out to be a good video. So I'm happy to do it.
It's worth it.
It's worth it sometimes.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's jump into this first section here. And Emily, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
Yes. Okay. So I realized my favorite quote, I've been reading it as a different variation, but this is the actual quote. It's from J.R.R. Tolkien. And it is not that, okay. It is, all that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. And I feel like that's always in the back of my mind in some iteration or other. And I feel like every time I look at it, I go, yeah, that's my life still. That's my life still.
I really like that quote. And Let's get into this next section here. And Emily, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective,
Mm,
brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through.
absolutely.
So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Well, I think that's a hard question because I feel like there's a lot that I'm still in sometimes that I feel like I'm not on the other end of yet, but I think that's normal
Hmm.
and actually really important to realize that this whole process of our industry is a journey. And as painful as that sometimes is to hear, it's very true that it's really about the process because every time we get an achievement, we want more. I think that's ingrained as artists as we want to just keep going. Broadway might be one of our biggest dreams, but I feel like people who work on Broadway for years and years are hoping to find something else too. So it's an ever evolving, ever changing process. So a couple things in that realm that have been challenges for me that I'm still working through. One of them, I think the biggest one is comparison. And I think that kind of works in any industry. I think ours is probably even more specific because we have so many visual elements and so many sense elements to feel compared to, whether we're comparing our voices to another person's voices, our body types to another person's body types, people putting up bootlegs of different people's performances, saying who did it best. There's so much comparison and so much space for us to see the comparison now with the internet, with YouTube, with Instagram, and so that's something that I'm constantly working through is going back to like my quote. It's just grass isn't always greener, right? It's everybody's experience is their own. You never know what people are going through behind the Instagram filter. We show our highlight
Yeah.
reels and we curate them and we're proud of our curated highlight reels because those are important, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people aren't showing, and that everyone who has an Instagram or everyone who has YouTube or has a bad audition day, like those are human beings and it's easy to compare yourself. One, I think probably the biggest challenge I've had that I think every single person in our industry has at some point is a body confidence issue. Especially, I worked on cruise ships for 4 years, and that was probably my biggest challenge. I would have thought performing and learning different styles of music was my biggest challenge, but my biggest challenge was definitely taking up space as a curvier woman. I'm still even in a smaller body compared to the world at large. I would be considered a smaller body, but in the cruise ship industry, I was told many times that I was too big to be on stage and that no one would want to look at me. And I almost lost my job a couple of times, just honestly being a normal sized human being who enjoyed eating every meal of the day, or despite how much rehearsal your body holds on to different stuff when you're under stress, and my body technically holds on weight when I'm under stress. And so even though I was fine with it and learning everything and getting show ready in my mind of music and dance and learning all the ins and outs of cruise ship life, thinking I am show ready, there were a lot of times when supervisors would say, "Oh, you're not show ready because you don't look show ready to me." So that's a big hurdle that I was going through, and I think it's still kind of implanted in my mind. And I think that's everywhere. I don't think that's just cruise ship life. I think that's our whole industry, and it's starting to shift, which is a beautiful thing. We're having more real bodies on stage, different people being represented, more of different people being represented. And I found that once I started to accept who I was and what I had to offer, aside from maybe what I looked like, my talent in the shows and what I could bring to the stage, I realized that I had more and more people coming up to me after shows, especially young women who were about to go into college for theater, or even just people who just loved coming on cruise ships and watching the shows. I would have more and more women who and every shape and size coming up and saying it was just so nice to see someone that looks like me up on that stage. It looks so nice to see someone who might not look like someone that's in a magazine wear short shorts and own it and look so confident and feel so confident. And it just adds to everything that I couldn't keep my eyes off you on that stage. And sometimes I think, oh, don't brag about yourself only. But I think that's also a moment of, yeah, like I was face to face with something that said you could lose your job because of the size of your butt. But then me owning it and being like, this is who I am. This is what I have. I can't change what my body is. And once I owned it, I felt I was stepping into my power more, and the audience felt it and they loved it. And it just goes to show that everybody's different and everybody has something different to offer. And if we accept those differences as beauty, you're going to get such a more interesting thing to see on stage and enjoy and have the audience connect with.
For sure. Thank you for saying all of that. There's so much gold in there.
Thank you. It's hard to talk about. I'm even like kind of feeling that
Yeah.
trembling feeling because it's just tough to talk about, but it needs to be. It's hard out there.
Yeah, these things need to be said. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And you're right. The comparison game is insane. And
Yeah.
we have to be really careful with that. And I'm so glad that you brought up not only the comparison, but also the idea that we're always looking for more, right?
Yeah.
And to really focus on that idea that it's really about the journey. It's not just the resume line or the peaks in your career. It's all the work getting to those things, because those peaks and those resume lines happen. And as great as they are and as much as we celebrate them, they happen. And then that's it. And then it's, well, what next? You
Yeah.
said you've spoken with loads of Broadway actors because loads of your friends are. I, through this podcast, of course, have spoken with loads of Broadway
Right.
actors. And it is a consistent thing that keeps coming up. People are always searching for the next thing. And it's not say that they're floundering around searching. It's they're looking for growth.
Yeah.
What the next big experience of life. And that's how it is. And I love that you brought that up, because those two things have been coming up fairly frequently throughout this interview process on the podcast. And I love that, because we're seeing that through this podcast that these things are fundamentals of what creates a successful career.
Absolutely.
The mindset that you need to have. And I'm so glad that this has become a resource and blown my mind in what it's become, that it really truly is a fantastic resource for anyone coming into this industry, anyone listening, that we're hearing the same things again and again and again,
Yeah.
that you need to take those, and they're so pertinent to applying to your own career. So thank you
Absolutely.
for sharing that.
Yeah. And I
Thank you.
feel like, I don't know, when I was in college, it didn't seem, and I'm in my 30s now. So it was quite a while in terms of, I don't know, and maybe it wasn't that long ago that I was in college, but it feels like there's been such a growth in just talking about mindset and talking about wellness and
100%.
just self perseverance and holding on to like your own magic and not letting it go. That wasn't really talked about a lot even 10 years ago. We just were taught, all right, go to the auditions, like bang the pavement, but there wasn't a lot of talk about how do you keep your soul happy.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way of just going to every audition when I first got out of college, or once I was really lucky that right after college, oh, sorry, my road next to me has 1,000 sirens and people that love to drive really loud. So if that comes through, I'm very sorry, audience. It's very annoying. I don't even have the excuse that it's like the streets of Manhattan. No, it's just New Jersey being loud. But I was lucky enough to book 2 great like national tours after college. I booked with a great theater company and I had a great time. But when I got into New York, wow, it just like it drained me because I didn't learn about holding on to what makes you special and really trying to figure that out before going out there. And I burnt out. Like burnout is also a huge thing in our industry. That's a hard thing to work through because I think that goes back to comparison. Like you want to do the same thing or even more that other people are doing. And sometimes it's about survival. Like you're in a show, you're enjoying the show, but you feel like you can't truly enjoy the show because you're thinking about how am I going to get my next paycheck once the show is done? How do I pay my bills? How do I pay my rent? In a way, in a strange way, I think a lot of actors were mentally a little prepared when COVID hit. It was already in that mindset of trying to hunters and gatherers, of trying to find what's next for our own survival.
Yeah.
Now it's even worse than it was before. But, I think mentally we're all okay. Like we're kind of used to this. Hopefully it won't last long. But yeah, it's tough out there.
Yeah, 100%. The mental health aspect of this industry is 100% something that is a new-ish development, and it's so
I'm
good that
so
it
happy
finally
it's here.
is something that we talk about.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And it's nice to be able to say outwardly, I don't feel great today. And other people go, that's okay. You don't have to be at 100% every single day because perfectionism is just not real. We can never get to it. Like perfect is something we can never aim to. And it's so exhausting, but it's such a hard mindset to get out of, especially when almost every actor I feel like has that ingrained in them from the beginning, is to find that perfect process. And its process is messy. Process is gross. You find out all the bits and bobs of yourself that you didn't want to find out in a process. And sometimes there's like cute little bows that you find and you're like, "Ooh, I can tie those little strings together. That's adorable." But most of the time it's just a big mess of a knot that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. But it's really cool when you find little moments to untie and you're like, yeah, I did that. All right, on to the next. So it can be really empowering when you find those moments in your process that you can truly celebrate. And that's something I'm really learning now, is to hold on to those moments that are meant for a celebration. When you really learn something about yourself, whether it's in the industry or outside the industry, as just as a human that can contribute to what you can offer as an actor, as an artist, kind of putting that in your back pocket and keeping it with you, rather than just being like, oh, that was lovely. No, hold on to that. You're allowed to be proud of yourself. You're allowed to step into your power. You're allowed to hold tight, because when you are in a time that's really tough and dark and empty feeling, and you're only able to find value through your work, you can reach back in your pocket and go, oh, no, I had this great moment. And that's where my value is. That's where my worth is. Is it easy to do that? No. But when you get those moments, it's really satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Thank you for all of that. And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment.
Ooh.
That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
I remember when I was really young, my mom and I would have these days, these Wednesday nights when we would go out. It was like always our date night. And it's funny because it started with sports. And then I was like, I'm not about this diving life anymore. I don't like this anymore. Let's just go to the mall. So we would go to the mall and just spend time. Yeah, we would shop, but we would spend time together, always get like Burger King, and then just kind of bond. And a lot of the times I remember driving back home and listening to Celine Dion and Barbara Streisand and their one song. Oh my gosh, what I can't remember what the song is called, but they have this amazingly dramatic duet that my mom and I would always sing to each other. And I'd always sing Celine and she'd always sing Babs. And then we'd switch it up sometimes. And I would always just catch her looking at me when in moments where I maybe as like a 12-year-old belt, whatever a belt was back then. And for me, and she would just look at me and go, this, you're meant to do this. You feel it? And I'd be like, yeah, I feel it. And I specifically remember this one time, Wicked had just come out and we were listening to the CD in the car and Defying Gravity had come on. And it was the first time ever that I think I was finding that my mix and my high belt. And
Yeah.
I just felt like I'd never really sang in that place before. And I was really young. I was probably only like 13 or 14 whenever that came out. And I have no idea what it actually sounded like, but in my head, I was just like, oh my gosh, am I Idina Menzel? And I sang it in the car. And my mom like had to stop the car and was just like, do you even know what you just did? I've never heard you sing like that before, because it'd only been like church music and stuff like that or Disney songs. And I was just like, that felt really cool. I want to do that all the time. And it just felt like from that moment, we both felt like there's something else there that let's try to explore. And my mom's always, ever since I was young and said, I want to be Eponine on stage. My mom's always been there to be like, you can do that. And so with her in my back corner there and with the support system that I have now with friends and especially my husband, it's been just like anytime I doubt myself, I feel like, no, this is what I'm meant to do. How I'm meant to do it, I don't know. But this, I need to entertain in some way because I know that I give something. Like that's my way of giving is through performance. I feel like I give something to the audience members, even if it's just for a moment of escapism. And that's what makes me feel like that's my part. That's my ingredient to the recipe. And yeah.
Yes, I love that image. Your ingredient to the recipe. Really good story.
Thank you.
And let's piggyback on that real quick and talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life? And what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
I So cruise ships was a big one for me. When I first booked my first cruise ship, I was going through a really tough time. My husband, who was then my boyfriend, was out on a national tour and we had a very long distance type of relationship for a while. He had done cruise ships before and left the company and then started to do these tours, but we were still always apart. And I was in New York, I was pounding the pavement, I wasn't getting any callbacks. So I was just getting really drained. It just felt like a dark time for me mentally. It was just tough. I was working like 3 different jobs, the whole catering, an office job, which I actually liked. I loved the people I worked with, so I didn't mind it. And I was editing my YouTube videos as I was at that job, which was really nice. I didn't take enough advantage of that. They were like, yeah, we don't care. Just answer the phones and make sure you don't miss a client. And I was like, great. And then I started actually picking up another freelance job. So I was like working 3 jobs and I was just drained. But I was just like, this is what we have to do. This is what the industry says. Like, this is what you have to do. So I felt like I was following the rules. And I was at this editing job and I got a call from my husband and he was just like, Emily, we just booked a cruise ship together. And I was like, what? Because I had auditioned
Whoa.
I booked with Carnival Cruise Lines and I had auditioned for them in the month of April. And we hadn't had this conversation, Gabe and I hadn't talked about him wanting to come back to cruise ships so that we could try to get a contract together till the summertime. And then he emailed and said, hey, I know Emily auditioned and that she's in your system, but I want to come back too. Is there any way that both of us can come back together? And since I auditioned and revamped their knowledge of who Gabe was because he had left, they were like, yeah, let's get you 2 together. And I actually didn't even get the call. I was thinking about that today. I was like, I didn't even get the call. He got the call. And every other contract after that, he got the call. And I was just told I got it too. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to Australia this contract.
Cool.
So it was so necessary. Very loud car. It was so necessary because I needed a win. I wasn't getting any callbacks and I really felt, is this even for me? I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I it was just like the universe or God going, hey, knock, 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 cool your jets. You're going to do something. And cruise ships, I did cruise ships for 4 years and I learned how to sing rock. I learned how to sing pop. I learned how to sing everything that any voice teacher had ever told me I couldn't sing. And I got really good. And I was super proud of like vocally where I was after every contract. I was always just a little bit better. And I felt like it was my first real big introduction into what being a professional artist was. And I had a couple of great moments after that when I booked the workshop and the concert at 54 Below. That was really great. That was actually a synchronistic moment too, where I sent in something to backstage, didn't hear anything. And then I knew a friend had worked on a different variation of the show. And I was like, hey, can you put in a good word for me? And he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever I can. I heard nothing for months. And then out of nowhere, I got this email saying, hey, someone dropped out and we need someone. Would you do this just like this minor role? And I was like, heck yeah, I'll do anything for 54 Below and this musical. I don't know if you've listened to Starry, but it is so incredible. I think they actually are up for a Grammy nom. Like that's how great it is. It's just soaring music and it's beautiful. And I was like, I will be
Wow.
involved in any way, shape, and form. Anything I can do, I'm there. And then a couple days later, after I got that call and I was like going over the music and like just asking them little questions here and there, they were like, actually, we came up to another snafu, and we need a new Joe, the character Joe. And I was like, oh, you do? And they're like, could you do it? And I was like, when is the performance again? They're like, in 2 weeks. And so I had to learn all this music. And
Oh,
and
wow.
if you've heard Starry, it's beautiful, and it sounds so beautiful that it sounds easy. But once you start singing it, you're like, oh, this is really difficult music to sing. And that's why it's so good. And so that was a moment where I was just like, yeah, oh yeah, like I will jump up to the challenge. I will do this because this feels like a moment that I can't let go of, and that it's going to be special. And it felt pretty magical, and everything leading up to it felt right, and it felt at home, and I just felt really like lucky and blessed to just be part of their process, because I think that show is it's not done yet. It's just so good that it can't be done yet. So I think it was just really cool to be part of it. And I don't know, it felt pretty cool to be asked really last minute if I could take on and they didn't know me at all, and they were like, "Can you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, if you've got faith in me, I've got
Oh,
faith in you, so
yes.
let's do it." So that felt good to be able to own that and do my best. And think it went really well. And it happened pretty much right before shutdown. That was in February, and that was really the last performance thing I've done.
Such good stories, both of those experiences. And I want to pull out from both of those the importance of relationships
Hmm.
and networking in this industry. Your relationships are the key to a successful career in this industry.
Absolutely.
It's all about working with people that you know who do good work.
Hmm. And being kind is a
It's
big
so
part of
important.
it.
Yes. Yes, yes. You have to have a lot of integrity. You have to be where you say you're going to be, when you're going to be there,
Hmm.
and you have to be prepared and you got to be nice.
Yeah. And there's also a difference between being kind and nice and letting yourself get stepped on. And I think that's a
Yes,
hard
of course.
boundary to find. I think a lot of us struggle with finding our boundaries. I know I do, of being like, yeah, I'll get that self tape to you in 5 minutes. And it's like, no, calm down. Like, you can breathe. You won't not get the job because you decided to eat your lunch. Or maybe you will, but are those people you really want to work with? I'm learning that more with age, is that you can be a little pickier, and you can take care of yourself, and you don't have to bend over backwards for everything, but there are things that are really worth bending backwards over for.
Yeah, well said. And then, real quickly on ships,
Hmm.
my wife and I ended up doing, well, we met on one cruise ship, but then we ended up doing a couple more contracts simply because it was logistically easy
Yeah.
because she was from Australia, I'm from America, and how else are we going to spend time and work
Yeah.
together? That's really the only situation. And we had a very similar situation where we submitted our stuff together, and Carnival Cruise Line said, yeah, we'll work with your situation. And I was a production singer, she was one of the dancers, and that was all we really wanted. And we got to be together and see the world together. It was
It's
amazing.
such a great way for it can be a make or break for a lot of couples for sure, but it's a great way to really do what you love with the person you love the most. And
Yeah.
it's a crazy, bizarre you could have an entire other podcast, man, like, of just about cruise ship life. Maybe we'll start one together. Oh my gosh. The four of
Honestly,
us will do a couples podcast on it. But yeah, it's a really special time. It's in its own time warp of cruise ship life. It's
for sure.
Yeah, you feel like you know everything about the microcosm of your ship. But the moment someone starts singing a song that's like current on the radio, you're like, "Are that's a different language. That's not real." Like,
Yeah.
that's not real. What is that song?
Honestly. And you know what I really love about cruise ships, and I'm sure you'd agree, is that I think that they are one of the best markets, the best place for you to perform in
Hmm.
because you get so much from cruise ships. And some people still give them a bad rap, and I can't really wrap my head
I
around that.
know.
You get to travel, which is great, and it's always to beautiful places because cruise ships just don't go to bad places.
Right.
You get paid well, or how about this? You get to keep the vast majority
Yeah.
of your money,
Not paying rent for
which
the
is
most part.
amazing. Yeah. And then the sheer number of reps on stage and opportunity to practice your craft and hone it
Hmm.
in so many different styles. What other platform gives you that kind of real world opportunity to train and get better?
Oh, it's insane the amount of strength and endurance vocally, physically, mentally that I've had on stage ever in my life. And the fact that, like you just said, like you're switching between genres of each night is usually a different genre of show you're singing. And
Yeah.
people think that might be easy, but that's actually really difficult because that's different parts of your throat you're engaging, different parts of your muscles, different parts of your voice, your head voice, your belt, your rock scream. Is not easy at all. And it's for a lot of people and it's not for a lot of people. You realize on your first contract of a cruise ship life if it's for you or not. Sometimes you learn that quickly in the first month. And
For sure.
I know, I'm sure you do too. Like I know lifers that have been with it and are still with it. And when the cruise ship industry comes back, they are going to be with it until the end of time. And I give them
Yeah.
a lot of props because, yeah, a lot of international couples, like that's just to be able to perform with your partner at all is almost impossible to find. So to be able to do that, see the entire world, do what you love to do, and not have to pay for food and board, despite how bad the food and board might be sometimes. No windows, you feel like you're in a cage. There's a lot of good that comes out of cruise ship life. And now that I've been out of it for over a year now, my husband and I were both about are able to see like, oh yeah, we went to Bali. That was cool. Like so there's things where I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, I would have never been able to do that before. Like when would
Exactly.
I
I
have
think
ever
about that.
when would I have ever gone to Singapore if not for a dry dock situation where the whole ship is getting renovated? Like it's just little
Exactly right.
and you take that for granted because that's just the norm on a cruise ship. You're like, "Oh yeah, Vietnam today." And you're like, "What? That's not normal. Like you should be come on, soak it up."
Honestly, that's how I feel. We went on my very first ship. We went through the Chilean
Oh
fjords,
my
which you can
gosh.
only experience on a ship.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't know, but that
amazing.
that sounds
Amazing.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, beautiful glaciers, just like 3 days of sailing past islands basically
Wow.
and glaciers.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so good. Love ships. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And look, it's a weird time, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about it a bit. We're amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
I hope that a lot changes in our industry. I really do. We need more representation. We need more diversity. We need more equity. We need people to feel safe. People of color, our BIPOC people to feel safe and valued in our community. And we say we're one big happy family, but there's a lot of stuff that just is old ways, archaic ways, even just the whole audition process that just it's time for a shift. And although this time is really hard for us to not have work and not to be busy and not to be auditioning, it is time that I'm really hoping that higher ups in the industry are hearing us when we're saying we need these changes. Just from a personal, from what I experience on a day to day with, I almost said cruise ship life, with New York life is the non equity audition route is still very much the cattle calls and standing outside in Manhattan on 8th Avenue in the sub-zero weather. And it's it's not necessary. There's so many other ways. And I hope that this time is opening up castings. I'm sure it is. I'm hoping it is. At least some casting directors I know are taking it in stride and being like, yeah, we're going to shift things. That there's just a newer way because we all have really smart brains and we can figure out a newer way to do this audition process that gets people seen. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've gone to a non-ec audition because there is always that chance that you will be seen. And I've just sat for hours and hours and I'm not even there as early as some of these men and women going to these calls and we just don't get seen because there's simply too many of us. I do think that
Yeah.
they want to see us all because they want the person that comes into the room, they meaning casting, they want the person who's coming into the room to be their person. And there's just too many of us. And the whole audition process, I think, worked back when there just weren't as many, especially women in the industry. Like, I bet it worked great in the 60s, but now it's it's 2020 and there's we love a musical. So there's so many of us and it just needs to shift. And I really hope that it will. For me during this time, I've been trying to stay as creative as possible. I've been putting almost all of that creativity aside from doing crafts, because I do a lot of crafts, is my YouTube channel. And I really do think that in some way that's going to be a big part of my path to whatever my version of success is in our industry. I love my channel. I love the community I'm building. She's small but mighty, but 3K is still a good handful of Forever Theater kids that feel like I'm their mama bear, and I'm helping them along the way of just, we've talked about just the process, just figuring it out, and it being okay when it goes horribly wrong, because we're still here, we're still breathing. We just got to get back up and try again if we have the strength to. And I try to keep that as my focus, and trying to create things that I really love. I get into a big bind when I create things just for the sake of creating them. And then I'm like tired. And because editing, I'm sure you know, with podcasts, it takes so much effort to edit anything that you want to be really good. So when you're editing
For
something
sure.
that you don't like, it's painful. And you're like, this sucks. I hate this. Why am I doing this? So that's been my main thing. I've also been just trying to prep for whenever the theater world opens back up. So I'm trying to reorganize my book, and what is that and what do I want that to represent. I've made a website. I'm talking to you within my voiceover booth that I've created for myself, because my husband and I do some voiceover work. So we're staying very busy. But is it the type of busy we want to stay? No. But we're making it work, and just trying to find joy in any little moment. Like I'm drinking this, it's probably awful for me, but it tastes good. It's the chai mix from Trader Joe's, and I'm just like, this is delicious, and this is what's giving me joy right now. So I'm gonna look forward to drinking that for the rest of this. And then I don't know. I love decorating my home for different seasons is giving me joy. So right now my place is decked out in all things autumnal and spooky. But then once probably November, maybe right after the election, I'm going to be like, I need Christmas. We're going to put in some Christmas stuff just to give me joy. So we're working off daily of what gives us joy. And that might mean decorating very early for Christmas this year for the holidays. But that is okay by me.
Great. I love your insight on all of that, how you're handling life. And yeah, with the audition stuff, I think it will move forward. It has to.
Us too.
We've seen the digitization of this industry just go full on, and I think that's going to be a big part of it, is that whole audition process, because it really benefits everybody.
Yes.
So why not move forward? It's the best time to do it, and put the systems in place that make it efficient and effective.
Absolutely. Efficiency. That's what we
Yes,
need.
exactly. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I
Okay.
want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible,
Okay.
one after another. Are you ready?
Yes.
All
Like
right,
heads up.
first question. Yep. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Myself, my mindset. But we're
Hmm.
working through it.
Yes. Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
To own my own power, because when I do
Yes.
really great things.
Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Before the industry went on pause, I was really getting into the groove of auditioning and finding joy in auditioning and doing the right type of work to make me feel super prepared. So I'm excited to get back into that and enjoy the process that is a scary audition.
Yes. And the fourth question. What is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology you found is helping your career right now.
Okay. I'm a little biased. Your podcast is amazing. So this is a great resource. Just podcasts in
Thank you.
general, they're free. They've got a lot of information, whether it's for our industry or things that just really give you joy and spike your interest in different hobbies. I love podcasts. I'm all about podcasts. I rave about them. My channel's a great resource. But for
Yes.
that, if you want to make your own, if you want to make your own videos, I think iMovie is a great place to start. A ring light is a great piece of equipment. You can get them super cheap in a lot of different places on Amazon. or you can really invest in a big one. And meditation apps. So I use a meditation app that's called Insight Timer, and I love it.
I love Insight Timer.
So good. And Spotify.
Yes.
Like you can listen to so many musicals on Spotify. And I'm like, how did I only just start using Spotify? So yes.
Brilliant. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
I think I would change a couple things. Number one, I totally would have started my YouTube channel earlier. I was vlogging in college. I don't know why. I didn't know it was a thing to do anything with video creation then. So I totally would have started then. It's like the one thing I really kicked myself about. I would dance earlier and more often in life and take more dance classes. And I would take more risks. I wouldn't play it as safe as I think I played it when I was younger. So maybe, who knows, maybe I'd be in a different place now, but I think I'd have more mindset and more confidence if I did a couple of those things earlier.
Great. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in the industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
That value and worth should come from you, come from your own heart, first and foremost, that your worth and your value aren't indicative of what you book or what you don't book, that just showing up is really important, but show up for yourself because that's where at the end of the day, at the end of it all, that's who you're stuck with. You define who you are, not what you do. And it looks different on everyone. And that's cool.
Brilliant. That is such good advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
And to wrap up this interview, Emily, it is time to give yourself a plug.
Oh my gosh.
Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
My YouTube channel is probably the biggest thing I'd love to promote. So you can look me up on YouTube. You can just type in Emily Martinez musical theater and I should pop up. There are a couple of Emily Martinez's out there, but I am one of them. So you will see my face, or you could look up youtube.com/Emily Martinez Entertainer. That's my official channel handle. And then on Instagram, I'm always there at Emily Martinez Official. I do have a TikTok, but God, I have I don't know what I'm doing. So if I do have TikTok, you'll see it linked in Instagram. So just go to Instagram and you'll find most of the stuff there.
Fantastic. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Emily just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with her. And be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, art and entertainment educators, and anyone you know who is aspiring to create a career in this industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful career in the entertainment industry. Case in point, having Emily on today and everything she shared and all the insights about this industry. It's invaluable.
Thank
and
you.
As of now, there are 146 other episodes
That's so impressive.
that you can listen to.
I bow down to that.
Thank you. Thank you. There's so much great content and everyone has so much value to give. Please subscribe, have a listen. And if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button and you can listen to tomorrow's guest. Emily, thank you so much for being here. Love your insight on this entire industry. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I've had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. I have a new guest 7 days a week. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.